Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday evening. I am here tonight, Dr. Aimee Baron, and I'm here tonight to talk with Tzipora Grodko, who she's kind of like taking over the world. And I admit I'm fangirling her, but I kind of feel like lots of you are fangirling her. She is really being an outspoken advocate of talking about the single community and how we, all of us as a community, can do a better job supporting them. And many of you know that she and I have collaborated on a whole bunch of things already. And the reason is because we have really, there's so much overlap between the singles community and also between the fertility community. And so we're going to talk about one. We have like a fancy name. I'm waiting for Tzipora to come on. I think she's going to come. She's coming on right now. We have a really fancy name for this live. It's called, here she is. It is called Seven Things. I like need to look up the notes. Seven things you don't know you're doing that are making your guests feel uncomfortable. So Tzipora, we had this conversation, right? Like first of
Hey
all,
everyone.
say hi, say hi, say hi.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining. If you're a host, I'm really humbled that you're taking the time to consider how you can be a better host. If you're hosted, this will be a validation station. If you have feedback and comments, please let us know. This is a community and the whole purpose is for engagement, education, and transformation. So even if me and Aimee can't address it, whoever's watching the live for the education piece will see your comment, and then hopefully that will lead to change. Hi.
Exactly. And we, by the way, just to answer already, there was a question about whether this is going to be recorded. The plan is to record it. Sometimes the Instagram gods do not allow these things to happen, but yes, the plan is to record this. Um, and it will also, once we record it, it will go up here. It will be shared on Tzipora's page, and it will also go up on our podcast sometime next week. God willing. We're all God willing. Okay, so let's launch right into this. So just give a background. I want to give a background to all of this. We're going to talk about a little bit like why we came up with this idea and then just literally launch right into it. So many of you know that Tzipora and I have been doing these conversations about changing the community, that all we want to do, God willing, is to be able to provide tools, give you guys ideas about how to make it easier for people who are struggling in general, but obviously specifically for Tzipora. Tzipora, she's a singles advocate, and for me, the work we do is in the fertility community, and there's so much crossover. So one of the things that kept coming up over and over again is like how how holidays are really, really hard, and one of the things that are really hard about it is like going to some place that is not your own. Like you're not like we're not talking about having the meals and having the holiday in your house. We're talking about going to someone else's house and then just totally feeling like uncomfortable in your skin the entire time. And Sephora, go add more.
On top of that, what always bothers me, and again, welcome to everyone that's coming. I'm just encouraging everyone to write your comments and feedback. Information's education, and that's what tonight is for. What's sad is that there's so much anticipation in a holiday approaching. There's so much excitement. It means all the things that are most important to people, which is engagement, connection, family, and friends. And if someone doesn't have family, if someone doesn't have that kind of friend where they can have that sort of connection that fuels their fire, the anticipation of holidays can fill them with dread and fear and sadness and loneliness. And then on top of all of that, if they have a plan they're looking forward to, sometimes people have to tolerate expected family gatherings, expected social limited like availability and opportunity. Sometimes it's not ideal. I have a funny post on my page that says, God says, "What do you want for Hanukkah?" And I wrote like an all expense paid trip to a Pesach program. And he says, "Well, that's too hard. What do you want instead?" And I say, "Oh, I'd prefer a spouse." And he says, which Pesach program did you want to go on
Totally.
again? So we recognize that. I recognize that. Aimee recognizes that. It's the climax of everyone else's joy becomes the climax of your anxiety. And while it's happening, to all of those amazing participants that are watching tonight that want to do whatever you can to host the right way, we're going to share a lot of what's happening behind the scenes so that you can do whatever you can to make it more comfortable, and providing insight into what someone's experiencing before the holiday approaches helps you understand a little bit of what they're experiencing once the holiday is here. And I'm just so grateful for the humility that it takes for people to say, let me listen to see how I could be a better friend, a better parent, a better host, a better community member, a better sibling that's going to be hosted with a sibling that may not have children yet, that may not be married yet. This is so important. It's so vulnerable. I've never done it before, but it has to be done. And Aimee said we're doing it. So that's why we're here
Correct.
now.
I just said, I'm like, so what are you doing Wednesday night? And so here we are. It's Wednesday night and we're talking about it. So, okay, so let's jump right
Yes.
in. So, number one, so we have 7 things, and so we're just going to go through them list by list, seven. We're going to go list by list. We're going to go through them one by one, and we're going to talk about them. And if anybody has suggestions, ideas, or things that you want to add specifically to the point that we're making, put it in the comments.
And I'm just going
And
to
also,
interject, sorry, this is a culmination of everyone's feedback. It's not just my opinion, it's not just Aimee's opinion, it's a community of thousands of voices.
correct. Absolutely. Okay, so number one, let's talk about the babysitter. The babysitter. So go ahead.
Okay, so I love how we solidified them into a point. I'll read the point and then we'll expand on it. Does that work, Aimee?
Yep.
So, number one, these are the fears, concerns, and discomforts of those that you may be hosting. Expecting me to be the designated on site babysitter simply because I don't have kids and I'm not married yet is hurtful. Of course, I love your children. However, I came to be hosted and enjoy Yom Tov, the holidays, just like you, not to be an unpaid nanny or babysitter. If you're a host and you relate, you could send a heart in, you could show some signs of life, but that's a big issue where people feel that they're indebted and their payment, so to speak, is to be the on-site nanny, the on-site babysitter. There's an expectation of, oh, we're all taking a nap. Can you watch the kids? Or you can watch the kids, right? And a big theme of the night is going to be expectations and assumptions. We're dismantling expectations. We're dismantling assumptions.
And so the key here is that any person, if you make an invitation to someone, or if someone says like, "Hey, I don't have a place to go. Can I come to your house?" There should not, we're suggesting that there should never be the expectation that this person is going to be the babysitter or the nanny for your kids. This is going to move us directly into point number 2 in 1 second, but I just want to stay here for a moment. I think, there is so much pain that's wrapped around, exactly as Tzipora said, this specific idea, right? Number one, it's, I don't have kids yet, and you want me to take care of yours when I'm just feeling so overwhelmed and watching you with your kids. And I wish that I was in your position, and I'm not. And now, not only do I not have the time to kind of retreat and gather myself because I know there's going to be another meal and there's going to be more time that I have to spend with all of you. And I want to spend time with you because I'm so happy to be with all of you here. I'm so happy to be in your house. I'd rather be here than be alone. But when there is this almost either explicit or implicit idea that, like, I have so much free time, and so like everyone else is exhausted taking their care of their kids, so you should, like, of course, just want to take care of my kids so that I can rest. And I want to be very clear with this. Parents and parenting is exhausting. It is. It is very exhausting. And every parent deserves a break. And I'll also say that specifically around holiday time, there are even more expectations and more stressors. And often, like, your kids are not sleeping well because they're on different schedules. Everyone's up late. Everyone has too much sugar. There are like all kinds of reasons why it's exhausting to be a parent on the holiday. However, it should not be that you're throwing off your kids to your single or unmarried or childless friends, siblings, etc., so that they can like have them so that you can have a break. Get a babysitter. Take turns maybe and say, hey, like, you know, do you mind if you watch them today, like for 2 hours in the afternoon, and tomorrow, like, you can rest and I'll watch them? Or like maybe even split it up an hour or an hour. Or like divvy it up among the family who's there and like everybody gets their turn. It shouldn't just be the unspoken expectation that whoever is the person there who doesn't have kids is just there for the taking. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah. So dismantling the first expectation that because you're here, you will, can, and want to be the unpaid nanny and babysitter. Yes, they love your kids. The expectation is hurtful. And I think that so many people don't even realize that they're experiencing it because it's become this unspoken understanding that this is my job. And it comes from such a good place, but it's not dignified. And we want to reinstate dignity. I think that leads us
Definitely.
to number two.
Definitely. And before we even get to number two, someone just said here, do people actually do that because it seems off? Yes, they
Yeah.
do. And this is the reason why we're talking about it.
Mhm.
Okay, number two.
Even though, again, the voice of many, even though I'm sitting with my entire family, expectation number two, why do I feel there's an expectation that I'm the cleaning lady, the co-chef, the waitress, just because I'm not busy at the table with my spouse or children? I'm so, so happy to help, but it's the expectation that makes me feel undignified and hurt. And I think often family members, because of the nature of our lifestyles, our experiences, just sit back and assume, oh, you're not busy. Of course, you'll get up and help. And I think what we are continuing to invite into this conversation is that that's another separation between I am treated this way, and because you're not married yet or don't have children, you're treated that way. And that creates this segregation, that creates that pain, and that creates that disrespect. We want to eliminate that.
Correct. And it is everything that we just said about the babysitter. It's the expectation that of course you should want to help. Of course, your quote payment for being here and sort of riding on the coattails of everybody else's simcha, you're just like along for the ride. So of course you would want to, like, you know, be the sous chef, and of course you would want to just, be cleaning up constantly and setting the table and cooking and like, right? So again, the mindset is eliminating the separation and that every person deserves to have a break, and every person also, I would say deserves, but I would say every person also should be helping. Like, it's not that like only the people with parents or the people who are married get to have a break and the people who are like don't have kids yet for whatever reason don't have a break.
Mhm.
Everybody deserves a break, and everybody deserves, again, let me say that differently. Everybody deserves a break, and everybody also should pitch in.
Right. Someone wrote
Period.
here, funny, I thought my single sister sibling would appreciate helping because it's awkward at the table for her without a spouse. My response to that is actually going to lead to our our next one, which should I jump in, Amy? Or should
Hold, pause for
we hold
that for a
off?
second.
There should not be this sibling, and I'm so happy you brought that here because I'm sure other people are thinking it. There shouldn't be a space for her to feel awkward. If there is if there is group engagement, um, the conversation is inclusive. Yes, there'll be moments where people can't relate because that often happens. If there's two businessmen that can engage in conversation on a similar topic, everyone else can't understand. If two people have a similar passion, everyone else can't understand. But for most of the meal, she shouldn't feel awkward. She should feel included and engaged in the conversation. So if she's feeling awkward because she doesn't have her spouse, that means that most of the conversation is related to things she can't relate to. And that's the issue.
Correct. And also I'll sort of add to that that yes, there is like I hear what you're saying behind it, this comment about how she thought that she would appreciate helping because it would be less awkward than her being at the table by herself. And so the idea is good. Like I think it's
Right.
absolutely incredible. You were thinking about it, you were wanting to be sensitive. The point that we're making is that when the expectation, like if this has happened enough where the single sister knows that when she comes to the house she's going to be helping because that's what you're quote making her, or saying like, hey, can you go get the blah blah, or can you like, then it starts to feel yucky. Like it starts to feel like, what, am I only asked to be here because you want my help? Like, do you not want my company? Do you not care about me? Again, like I love the idea. The intention is good, but we want to flip it and say, number one, everybody deserves a break. Number two, no one should be forced with burdens at any point just because they don't have what everybody else has. And number three, now, like, let's make conversation more inclusive so that she doesn't have that feeling that she's being left out. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe now we turn to
Yeah,
number three.
yeah, we're going to turn to number three, and I want to add again because maybe I dismissed it. It's receiving is uncomfortable to receive consistently. Giving is actually part of getting. So yes, invite her to help, invite anyone to help. If I'm being hosted, I always say, what could I bring? And people are like, don't bring anything. And I feel like, but I want to.
Bring
So giving
something.
is getting.
Correct.
Yeah. But again, the expectation, and someone wrote here, I don't have kids. I even feel guilty sleeping in while at family or friends with kids because it's not even an expectation. It's my own guilt or thought there may be an expectation. Yeah. If someone's sleeping, I understand that. I understand that.
Right. Right.
So
So I think like we're trying to change this. It's not going to be perfect, but I think like even just maybe even identifying it on the outset, like saying to whomever you're staying by, like, hey, like I, I I'm really exhausted from the week. I had a really tough week. Like I'm gonna sleep in for the first day, but the second day I'm gonna get up and help. Like don't it's not about all or nothing here. This is about, as a host, what can you do to make the person in your life who is struggling, what can you do to make them feel more included? But it's also for you as that person, and you advocating for yourself and you saying like, hey, like these are the things that I need. I'm not here for a free ride, but I need this also. And really setting those expectations and advocating for yourself on the outset. Like this is a give and take, and everybody has a piece here.
100%. People don't know what you need until you tell them.
Totally.
Number four, the voice of many. Please, I beg of you, don't bring up my dating life. Don't bring up my fertility status. People do that. Yes, people
Yes,
do
they
that.
do.
Don't share your advice, opinions, and feedback. I face this draining experience every day of my life and dream of spending time with those I love as a pleasant distraction instead of a triggering point of contention. If I need advice, I'll ask. I know you mean well and you want to express interest in my well being, but this area of my life is off limits unless I bring it up. Aimee.
This is a great, this is a really important point, because I often, what happens at these family tables, chagim, these holiday tables, these holidays in general, when everybody gets together, it's, it's a time where people haven't necessarily been in the same room or around the same table as others in a long time. And so there's the natural like, hey, how's it going? I haven't seen you since last year. I haven't seen you in 6 months. And like, yeah, of course, everybody's on their WhatsApp and people are checking in, but it's not the same. We all know like virtually checking in and texting with people is not the same as really spending quality time 48 hours plus with somebody else. And then when you get like multiple people in a family together, it tends to be just like everybody starts like, hey, what are you up to? What are you up to? Blah, blah, blah. And so it's natural because you're interested in someone's life, like you're just interested, like you love them. It's natural to want to talk about the elephant in the room. And we're telling you, please don't talk about the elephant in the room. The reason we're saying this is exactly what Tzipora said. This is something, and now I'm going to use the word we, but when I say we, I mean exactly what Tzipora said also, that the this is coming from voices of thousands of people that someone wrote here, the people that have the most to say about your single status are usually the ones who never try to set you up. Okay. Yeah, probably, maybe. And where I was going with it is more that this is draining for us. We live with the empty hole in our life every single day. We wake up in the morning and it's one of the first things that we think about. And we go to bed at night and it's one of the last things that we think about. How we wish that our lives could be different. And we are doing everything we can to try to make our lives different in our own way, whatever that is. If this goes along with the like, don't give advice, don't tell people, oh, there's a great doctor for you. Oh, like you should see that Shad Khan, that matchmaker. Oh, you should go to this event. Oh, you should like talk to more people. I think like it is the best thing that you can do for someone is to say, like, talk to them about anything else, but also just to say, like, hey, if at some point over the holiday you want to talk to me more about your stuff of what's going on, like I'm totally here for you, but I totally understand if you don't want to talk about it at all. That way the opening is there, and then you can, if you feel safe, if you feel comfortable, but there is no burden to do so. And also, there's no burden to do so in a public setting. I mean, who doesn't love the like sitting across the table with 10 couples that someone mentioned earlier and be like, hey, Tzipora, when was the last time you went out on a date? Or did you get back those results of your fertility tests yet? No, like, no. These are private,
Tried visiting
sensitive.
that rabbi who lives like in Europe. I heard if you go, have you tried doing that publicly? So my heart is on display publicly, and I don't want to be a sourpuss, and so I'm going to laugh and smile and maybe continue the conversation because also now I'm engaged. And maybe even though I don't even want to talk about it, I'm so happy to be engaged in the conversation that I'll sacrifice my own discomfort. So I'll share. We just want to take something that's again become socially normal and say it shouldn't be done socially because it's not very normal. And I will say, if you invite a sibling or a friend on a meaningful walk and say, hey, do you want to go on a walk with me? And in that moment, you say, I just want to let you know that I'm thinking about you a lot in this challenge. Do you want to talk about it? I don't want to pretend it's not happening. We never get together all year. We're here now. I just want to ask, do you want to talk about it? Their eyes like fill up with tears and they might say, I don't want to, but it means so much that you asked. Because in that moment, that person feels like their pain was seen. And when things are done socially and publicly, we know that when things are done flippantly in public, what's valued is dismissed. Things that are intimate and personal, that are taken care of with the proper care that's needed, it's not public, it's not flippant. And that's what we want to try to introduce.
Absolutely. And I just want to read a couple of these comments here. Someone wrote, I'm single, but that's probably the least interesting thing about me. So why dwell on it? Yeah. I mean, there are one of the things that we're going to put up actually in the next week is something is a post where we talk about the 49 things to talk about that have nothing to do with children, babies, pregnancy, etc. There and like I have lists of 173 items of things to talk about. There are so many interesting things about a person, about the world, about the political climate, about Israel, about anti Semitism. I mean, that's just like one piece, but there are a million things to talk about that have nothing to do with any of those things that might be triggering for someone. And, somebody said, also about how, like, not only like, should you not ask, but at the same time, don't talk over and over again and harp on like just talking about your kids and your pregnancy and like what clothes you bought for them and like where you're taking them on your holomoe trips and like what schools they're going to and what camps. Like, that's great and wonderful, but if you know that you have someone who doesn't have kids at the table, just like be aware that, like, we're not saying that, of course, that you can't ever talk about these things. I think that's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous thing to say. But if every conversation solely revolves around children and there's nothing else that's shared, then there's a problem. And so we're just pointing it out here. So maybe you want to print up that list. And so you have it to refer back to and be like, oh, right, we should talk about X, Y, and Z. That's all.
Yeah, and I appreciate you letting people know that there's a balance, because the point isn't for people to feel immobilized by their blessing and think, well, what do I talk about? There's always balance. And even in sharing your own experience, you can also invite other people in sharing about, I don't know, like you're talking about your kids and you ask someone like, what would you do? I was so stressed out the other day. I didn't even know what to do. Like, what would you do? Instead of it being so limiting. So everything is about balance, and we're just introducing sensitivity so that we could introduce balance.
Yeah.
Um, someone else,
I two more points that are just coming up in
yeah.
comments I just want to give voice to because they're great.
Mhm.
Someone said two things to never say at the table. Hey, we need to find so and so a great guy. Does anybody have anyone? Okay. Again, the public nature of that.
I always say this isn't a live Netflix season of The Bachelor and I'm the Bachelorette. Like, I
Are,
didn't I I didn't sign up for the show. I didn't know that's what was going to happen when I came. I did not want to be the topic of conversation. Um, Uncomfortable, but I will laugh because I don't want to also be the Debbie Downer of the conversation.
correct.
So,
Correct. And also the like the someone else brought up like don't say across the table. Say, "Oh, I'm davening for you every day. I just want to let you know I'm davening for you every day." Again, public versus private, right? When what Tzipora was sharing before, when someone took you out, like if someone takes you out on a walk and on that walk there's this meaningful conversation that happens, and then in private, in a way that makes the person feel seen and validated, then you share something like that. Incredible. But just having this flippant comment of like, so you can be Yotze, just so you can be like, oh yeah, just by the way, I'm like just letting you know, not it just falls flat. It just falls flat.
yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Um,
Next, we're on, I think, number 5.
we're on number 5. Um, and I'm also just, oh, we're going to get up to that. Okay. Number 5. Whew, the voice of many. Why is, again, expectation. Why is it normal that I am forced to share my room with one of my nieces or nephews while my younger married siblings get their own space? I need my privacy just like anyone else. Can you imagine being in my position? Please make the same effort for me as you would for them to be comfortable. I would even be happy to stay in my own room at a neighbor or a hotel. At least give me the respect to consider my options before deciding for me. And I, what's interesting about this one, I think Aimee was actually, I think you brought it up. And when you brought it up, I, I, I thought like, I never even assumed having my own space was an option, because I know that it's uncomfortable and I know I'm being hosted and I don't want to be inconvenient. And I've learned to be comfortable sharing a room with my nieces or nephews. But when you brought it up, I thought like, yeah, I'm 30 years old. Like, why should I not get my own space? But I'm so used to it that I've never even been bothered because I didn't even consider that it's something I deserve to have. So I think again the key point is being asked. Just ask like, would you, I'd love to host you. I wish you could have your own space. Would you mind, because I don't have any other option? If you feel you don't, it's totally normal. We don't have unlimited space, but just notice what we're doing and invite sensitivity and ask to give respect.
Look, I think that this kind of it all boils down to exactly that. The the respect that anyone deserves at this stage in life, regardless of whether they have a spouse or whether they have children yet. And I think that often in people's minds, the idea is that, well, oh, well, you're just expendable and you can just like have an air mattress in the living room, or you could just like, squish in with somebody else. And it that like, they don't realize, yeah, by the way, like, you don't squish in with somebody else in your own apartment or life. Like, you have your own room, like you have your own space. So why would you, like, you would never consider that, like, would you say, let's actually just take this as an example. Like, would you ever say to a 60-year-old that they should squish in with a 3-year-old nephew? Like, no, you would never say that. I don't think anyone would ever say that. Okay, so then let's think about it a different way. Would you ever say to a 50-year-old? Would you ever say to a 40-year-old, like, what is the line where someone is viewed as still, quote, a child because they don't have a spouse or don't have children of their own, so that they can just bunk up with another kid? Like, what is that line? And so what we're suggesting here is every adult deserves to have an adult room. Adults are adults, and you should or could, again, we're not telling people what to do, but we're saying you could, number one, advocate for yourself. And number two, as a host, you should be able to say, like, hey, I would love to give you X, Y, and Z. I don't have room. Tell me what you want. Is it that, like, you'll only come if you have your own private space? And I totally get that. So now maybe I have to look for a neighbor or someone else. Or, like, would you be willing to share? Not just making the assumption that you're always going to have to share. And I think the one point, like, somebody brought up here also, like, kicking a single sibling out of their room is also not nice. Like, that's the other, like, oh, well, you're not married yet, so you can just give your room to the marrieds, and like you'll just go sleep on an air mattress and on the couch or whatever it is. Like, also, again, everybody deserves to be treated with dignity.
And I want to make sure this doesn't come across as entitlement. Like, I don't understand. Everyone needs to pitch in. Why is that such a big deal? Doesn't she understand? I'm hosting her. I'm making a whole Chag, a whole Passover, a whole holiday. Why can't she just make herself uncomfortable? Everyone needs to chip in the way that they can. I want to emphasize these people are already so uncomfortable. If someone broke their arm and you needed to unload your car, you wouldn't say to them, "Why aren't you helping me?" You'd say, "Oh, you sit. Your arm's broken. Like, you sit. This would be uncomfortable for you." They're already uncomfortable. So it's not this woke generation of honor my feelings, walk on eggshells, because we're all too sensitive for our own like maturation and existence in society. It's We're already really uncomfortable. So let's do what we can to try to make this a little bit more comfortable. And you might even find that when you're inviting all these sensitivities, the person may say, I'm okay with this. Like, I'm so happy to share. I'm so happy to be the co-chef. I'm so happy to be the waitress. It's my way of giving back. But like, thank you for giving me dignity. I just want to make sure that there's that clarification, because I think if I was a host, I might be feeling like, yeesh, there's a lot I need to do to be doing this right. And I think I'm doing a great job. And I think whenever we're learning about something new that's foreign that we can't relate to, there's a little bit of resistance. So if you're feeling that, it's so normal. And that's why I continue to say I'm humbled by everyone listening, because it takes a lot of humility to suspend judgment and invite foreign education that you can't relate to, because you didn't have a difficult time having children. You didn't have a difficult time getting married. And you can't understand why your sibling or friend wouldn't be thrilled that she even got invited by you to come for the holidays. Like, we're just introducing a new perspective and inviting so much sensitivity, because again, the arm is broken. It's not
Correct.
comfortable to begin with.
Correct. I'll add one tiny piece to this. It's not only about giving the person the dignity to have the offer of a separate room and separate space, but someone also said, yeah, and don't sit me at the kids' table.
I have that actually too, yeah. Don't sit
Yeah.
me at the end
Yeah.
with the kids. Don't sit me at the kids' table. Um,
I'll
not a
tell
kid.
you I'll tell you a trick that we use actually at our Shabbos tables. I'll share with all of you. When we have people who are unattached, whether they're singles, whether they're teenagers, whatever it is, people who are unattached that are specifically coming and staying with us and not part of not coming with other people in our family, we actually sit them the closest to us, like closest to my husband and I, because the problem is that if we sit them further down the table and the couples or the families are sitting closer to us, then they're often left out of the conversation because all the conversation is happening in the front and they're kind of in the back. If we move them, this is what we've come to over the years. This is not like we were not, this took us a long time
Is
to
it
kind of
socially
like,
off if I give you a standing ovation in my like office space?
okay, stop. Um, no,
Wow.
we started, we noticed that like we didn't get to know these people at all because the conversation was being monopolized by the beginning part of the table, the front of the table. And so in order to be able to actually get to know them and to make sure that they felt included, we moved them all the way up to the front, because that conversation between couples or families is still going to go on. But how do we make sure that the table, the conversation at the table is happening like this, as opposed to this, then this, then this? Just a suggestion, that's what works for us. It may not work for any of you, but I'm just sharing what works for us.
Wow, that's incredible. And I think people might naturally gravitate towards the end because of the natural selection of everyone gathering. And if you notice that, ah, what a feeling to say, no, 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 I'd rather you come closer to me. Sit here. They might say, no, 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 it's fine. Because instinctively you feel like, oh, like, no, I don't want to mess things up. I don't, yeah, no, I want you here. I want you here right next to me.
Correct.
Wow.
Correct.
On behalf of
Okay. Number,
society, Amy's like, stop it. I didn't mean to like do that.
correct. Let's go. Next
Okay,
one. Next one.
number six. Number six is such an important one. It would mean so much if you asked how you can make this Yom Tov, this holiday, Pesach, whatever it is, special for me. Thoughtfulness is reflected in making my favorite dessert, asking if I want to bring a friend. That's a big one. Asking if, or even if you purchased a book for me, something you think I might enjoy, any act that reflects that you were thinking of me is so appreciated, because you don't know this, but again, the voices of many, but I thought I would be at this table with my spouse and our children by this year. And so it's taking all of my strength to smile and not break inside while watching everyone play peekaboo with the new baby and fussing over the newly married couple, with everyone's comments of, We should have more celebrations very soon. We should have more simchas very soon, and maybe doing a head nod in my direction. I'm already coming a little bit handicapped. Please ask me what would make this special so that I feel like I can come with the strength that I don't really have.
This is a really big one because it's what we're asking here and what we're suggesting to each of you is not only should you seat me at a different place at the table, make sure I have a room, like give me dignity, like don't ask about things that are private. Like not only are we saying that, but what we're saying is if you actually at any point went one extra step more to think about me in the same way that you think about the other people who you're inviting, right? Like just think about it. If
Yeah.
you knew that somebody had food allergies, like you would ask, like I always ask, I mean, all of us do, I think, as hosts, like we're always like, what are you allergic to? So we know that we're not going to be making those foods because we don't want to, God forbid, have a problem with someone. Like if you knew that somebody like had difficulty walking, then you would put like that person in a room that was closest to the door, that was not upstairs, so they wouldn't have trouble going upstairs, right? Like you would do something to make sure that that person felt more comfortable. So what we're saying here is that as a single or as someone who doesn't have children yet or is going through any kind of difficulty, we also want you to think a little bit about us. Like, if you can, if you have any extra room in your brain during this crazy, crazy holiday time, like, I, again, I'm just going to speak for myself and say, I know when so and so comes over, they love my lemon cookies. So I try to make those lemon cookies because I know like that's something that they enjoy. So there are tiny things like that. Like if you pick up the kind of milk that you know that she drinks and nobody else drinks that milk. Like, okay, a lot of this is revolving around food, but like, you know what I'm trying to say here?
Yeah.
The Tzipora, add more.
Yeah. I think it's very powerful. Personally, when we wrote it, I cried a little bit because uh, that's what I think about around my table. I think, whoa, I was so convinced last year that I'd be here in a different place. And it doesn't matter how healthy you are, it doesn't matter how much self-work you do. It's simply the reality you adjust to. And um, it's something so small that goes so far. I went to a good friend's sister last year, and she once we had a meal at some point at someone's house, and she saw that I was eating an avocado, and I was like, yeah, I'm very picky, but the only thing here that I like is avocados. And when I went to her house that year, at every meal, it doesn't look pretty. She just had like a small little bowl of chopped up avocados, and I said, did you do that for me? Because it's just in comparison to her beautiful side dishes, it didn't blend in. And she said, "Yeah, I noticed that you liked avocado, so I made them for you." I felt like I wanted to eat every single avocado, every single meal, just because it made me feel so whole. So I think there's no accident. This wasn't meant to be a grand finale, but I would say it really summarizes a big purpose of this entire talk. Um, it's so easy to just say, what can I do to make this extra special for you? It's free. Very often, a person might say nothing. They might not even know, but they'll feel so seen and supported and loved. And there's nothing more that someone wants to feel, especially during a time when they're extra vulnerable.
And I this is a point that I'm glad that came up because it was something that we wanted to talk about. So in conjunction to this, someone wrote, so many people buy toys, etc., for grandchildren, for example, but so give something nice to the couple who doesn't have kids yet or to the single. So this is exactly what we're talking about. And I'll even take it one step further. I know, not talking about Pesach, but I know there's a family that I'm very, very close with. And everybody lives close, like everybody lives in that community. And for every holiday, um, the matriarch, like the grandmother of the family, makes challah and soup for all of the married family, like all the married couples, like and she like gives it out. And the person who's single doesn't ever get one. Like she never gets the challah and the soup. Um, there there's another family that I know that she like they like the grandmother or the grandparents always go around and they buy like little things like little bracelets or little necklaces for all of the grandchildren and also for the parents because they're so like they buy like little trinkets and then like the person who's single, like she never gets one. She never gets any of these gifts because like she doesn't have kids and she does like and so just if you're going out purposely to buy something for the entire family, just make sure you don't forget the single or the person who is struggling. Don't forget them. Um yeah, somebody just wrote here in a private comment that it's hard being at a holiday knowing that I was supposed to be here with my baby, celebrating with them, not mourning them, and just missing the moments that I'll never have. Like this is these holiday experiences are moments in time. They are seminal moments in time where everybody thinks exactly as Tzipora says, like I was supposed to be pregnant by now. I was pregnant and my baby was due already. And I was planning in my head that I was going to have a 4-month old at the Seder. And like, I was going to figure out how to deal with, babysitter, not babysitter, whatever it was. We each have these big moments in time where we are hoping and dreaming and planning that things are going to be different. And so when it is not, when the everyday is exactly the same over and over and over again, to have one tiny thing that makes it a little bit different and a little bit special just goes such a long way.
Yeah.
Um, we have, but literally help my mom out because I did nothing for my husband and I. Okay. So yeah, I just more comments on that. Um, we have one more point. Ready? The number 7.
Go for it.
One more point. Um, ask if I want to come on Holomoid outings or night activities with the family, but don't assume that I will. I have my own life. I have my own plans. And I might need some time away after being together for all of the meals and all of the things. So please include me. Ask me if I want to come, but I need you to understand if I'm just not going to. And don't be upset and don't be disappointed and don't be offended. So I'll let you take this one.
Ugh, there's nothing else to say.
Yeah, I think this like this is just really the number 7 is really just a corollary of all of the things that we're talking about in general, right? Like what we're trying to do here is just alert all of you to the kinds of experiences that people are holding in their hearts, the heaviness that they have every single day, and know and for you to understand that that heaviness follows them into a holiday. It follows them into every simcha, into every celebration. And so if you can, even if you take only one of these things and practically like bring it into your life, even only one, 7 is a lot and we totally get it. But even only one, if there's a little bit of a change in the way that you are interacting with that person in your life, they will be so appreciative. So appreciative.
And I want to share that if you're a parent or a sibling or a very good friend or anything of the above, and you're hearing this and you're just feeling like so sad, so sad to hear the words unspoken that someone you care about might be experiencing. Um, I want you to feel empowered to know that if they're coming, you're someone that brings them a lot of joy. And that is one of the greatest compliments that could be given, that your presence, your audience, your engagement is something that enhances their life. Everyone always says, I want to make a difference. I want to do something great. You have front row seats to be making a very big difference, to be doing something very great. So you don't need to look far. You can, you, you might feel sad, but also feel empowered to know that you know what to do. And that your change will enhance someone's day, someone's life, someone's entire experience. And I can't express it enough. Thank you so much for coming and participating and listening. And whoever you connect to this week, when it's, if you're getting a manicure, if you're at the supermarket and everyone starts to do that whole like, well, who are you having and who are you having? I'm going to ask you a favor. I'm going to ask if you can bring up this conversation and say, when they say, what are you doing for Yontif? What are you doing for the holidays? Where are you going? If you could say, I'm going to tell you, but I heard something. I just have to share it in case it's helpful for you. Let's try to spread this. Let's try to spread it, because people don't know. And one person you tell will affect an entire world. And then they'll repeat it, and then they'll repeat it. Let's make this be the hawk, the pre-holiday hawk that people talk about. Um, that's my favor that I'm asking of everyone here.
And I 1,000% echo it. And I want to just reiterate one point that Tzipora made, which is that if you are hosting, it means that they feel safe with you. They want to be there because they don't have to go away. They could choose to stay on their own. Many married couples or many couples do that. They stay on their own instead of going to family or other friends because it's too painful for them. They don't feel safe with family. Um, or we know of lots and lots of singles. I'm sure you do also, Tzipora, where people singles go away together instead of being with their family because it's too painful for them. So if you have the privilege of hosting someone, that means they feel safe with you. That means they want to be there. And that is absolutely incredible. So that anything that you take away from this is only going to make it even better and even more like warm and lovely and just embracing experience for someone. And you have the power to do this. And that's why we wanted to share this. So thank you, all of you, for being here. We are so grateful that you're here. Yes, God willing, this is going to be recorded. Yes, it'll be on both of our pages, God willing, God willing. It'll be up on our podcast, God willing, next week. And if anybody has any questions for either one of us, a specific situation that you're going through that you didn't want to air right here, you can DM either one of us, and we're happy to answer and help you out. Tzipora, last words.
Thank you. I humbled and grateful, and let's spread it. It's so much more interesting to talk about than the dessert that you're making.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen.
Have a wonderful
Good night, everybody.
bye.